Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is Vanessa, and I am going to talk to you about one of my most exciting topics. And in case you have not seen, we have launched our next certification. It is brand new. It is the Performance Designer Certification. So Performance Designer Certification is our response to instructional design. And so for those of you that may or may not know my background started in corporate training, and then I became an instructional designer. And I just love being able to design really cool programs and experiences for learners or any audience. Like, I think my heart is in marketing, if I'm honest. Or maybe maybe my side chick is marketing, but my heart is learning. But anyhow, I just love designing things and experiences as opposed to like one and done training. And this program I'm so excited about because it's really tying evaluation, the end of the ADDIE process, that E, and really pulling it through the entire process and bringing it up, particularly at first, to start from the beginning. I think the only way to look at instructional design and evaluation is through a holistic process. And when you look at things so fragmented, that is where you lose some of the impact that you're looking to make, and you leave a lot of potential on the table. You know, one of the things that we talk about in our certification programs is the fact that levels 1 and 2 can be measured right in the training, right? It doesn't have to be this separate piece. And it's actually better to be evaluating levels 1 and 2 in particular, and use that, use your experience time to be measuring those things, because you can then adjust on demand, right? So if you know that there is a challenge that is happening in an in-person experience, why do you want the person to leave feeling frustrated? Why don't you want to address that in the moment? It's like some episodes back with Dr. Sydney Heimbrock, we talked about the experience I had the night before. Or I was in Publix, and I must have looked like, me or my dad, I think it was my dad, looked like he didn't know his way around the produce section, which is like so far from the truth, but here we are. And they popped in and like, hey, do you need any help finding something? And that employee could have very well just been like, yeah, you know what? They look like they're frustrated. They're trying to find something. I'm just like not going to help them. I'm going to let them come to me, which I'm not going to lie. Usually I won't. Like, I will go down with the ship, not finding what I need. It just happened to me like last week in Whole Foods, because of my own pride, I guess. And like partly like frustration that I could not find this thing that I like knew exactly where it should be. Anyway, but that is not a unique sentiment, right? A lot of us will go down with the ship and be like, if I can't find it, or if I'm frustrated, it is what it is, and I'm just going to leave a bad review. I mean, I don't do that part, but like there are people that think that, right? Or when they, have a bad training experience, it reflects in their reaction sheets, or their smiley sheets, if you will. So we've got to start creating and designing training so that that data can be sent back to a facilitator or, someone in the moment to be able to adjust and course correct to help, that learner, that person along, to help them get to where they want to actually apply what they learned on the job, right? If you had a really crappy experience or you don't buy into something for whatever reason because you don't feel like it is reflective on you, then I'm going to go back to doing things the way that they've always been done because that is easier for me. That's what I believe, as opposed to like addressing that in the moment. Anyway, I'm going off on an aside, but those sorts of data collection moments cannot occur if you did not design for them. I'm going to say that again. Those data collection moments, the formative data collection, cannot happen if you are not designing for them. You could always do an after session survey at any point. You could always do a pre and post and just integrate it, right? But integrating a formative evaluation approach takes time and design. And there's a lot of talk out there about training and learning being, not just a content dump and not just a foundational event. Well, the only way that we can get there is through designing for performance, where you sit back and you say, okay, I got this request for a new sales training program. Let me dig deeper into the why. Let me dig deeper into what's the result that you're looking for? Why is this so important to the business? And really pulling back the layers to better understand what is happening. And making that critical decision, is training the answer? One of the things that I love so wholeheartedly about the Kirkpatrick model and the way that Jim and Wendy updated it is that they really emphasized, and they when they made like the rendering and things like that, they zeroed in. It's literally a bullseye in that new image, level 3. Because that is where the magic really happens, right? That is where performance happens. And so in instructional design, traditional instructional design, what I see is that we focus on the learning event, like that first foundational event, and not necessarily what's going to happen when someone is out on the job. But when you design with evaluation baked in, and when you're going through your ADDIE process, you design with, better understanding of what are those leading indicators that we're going to need to capture. What are the critical behaviors that someone actually has to perform? Then you can design a program so that those critical behaviors are transferred from learning to performance. But if you don't take the time and you focus your time on learning objectives, you're focusing for yourself, the instructional designer. For years, would recommend to clients, don't put the learning objectives on the screen. No one cares. They care about what it is that they're going to learn and why this is important to them. But Bloom's taxonomy, they don't know it. They don't care about it. And they just kind of lose you. What they want to know is okay, because I went through this, what am I going to be able to do differently? What's the performance outcome? When we design for learning objectives, we design for other instructional designers to be able, and not our actual learner. Real talk. And when you can stop and think, how can I restructure this training request into a performance package with various components, that some of it may be an educational like a foundational educational event as like the starting point, like that's okay. I think that we dog training too much as an industry too. Like it's so ineffective. Like it's awful. It's terrible. Like it's not, right? Like we still need to learn. We just need to redo how we do the learning. And that's what this certification program is for, is to help you rethink what instructional design could look like so that you're designing for performance and you are designing for evaluation. How do I bake in my metrics, my measurements? How do I bake in my data collection moments? How am I able to actually get to level 4? Hint, hint, it is by starting there. It is. So what you will go through in the program is our Kirkpatrick design and evaluation process. And it starts you from phase 0. We're talking about level 4. Why is this a need? Why now? What's the strategic plan? What are your stakeholders saying like this need truly is? And then walking you through the actual designing. And we're not talking about just designing that one foundational event, but we're talking about how do you restructure your project management processes, your timelines, to be able to leave time to develop your, what we call at Kirkpatrick, required drivers, right? Your job aids, your checklists. How do you know if something should be an additional micro-learning or a drip-fed course? How are you going to design for a social network or a social learning group? Managers have to be involved, right? So like what kind of tools do I need to provide my managers in order to get them on board and to get them to participate in this process? See, the way that instructional design normally is, we don't think about that. We don't design thinking about that. We just assume, okay, they went through the training. Their manager should just know that they should be checking in on it, right? The manager should just know what questions to ask, what to follow up on. Even if we have to remind them to have the conversation, well, they should just know what it is that they should be asking. Spoiler alert, they don't. They really don't. They need to be educated, especially with new initiatives that they maybe didn't experience. They need to be educated. Like I've literally heard of some managers tell me like, I don't even know what some of my people are being trained on. Like I'm told that they have to go through these trainings, but it wasn't part of my experience. So I don't actually know what they're learning there. They come back and I find out afterwards, you know? And then we think about like, you know, setting up the monitoring and adjusting tools. That takes time, right? Like you can templatize a lot of it over time, but you still need to like go and set that up. The traditional instructional design process doesn't allow for that. One of the other things that I'm super excited about is the fact that we are leaning in on ADDIE. And I know that some of you will say ADDIE is outdated, and you have other methods that you utilize. And I recently was on a call with a customer and I was telling them about this program, and he was like, I've got to ask you something. And I'm like, yes. And he goes, I just got asked, you know, if there's another framework instead of ADDIE, because ADDIE is not fast enough. And I was like, oh, fair. And I think we have to start thinking of ADDIE more as a framework, but it is our responsibility as the executor of that framework to be able to use it in a flexible manner, in an agile manner, and to pick the right tools inside of it, right? In order to execute faster as needed. And sometimes that's like not appropriate. Like I don't love always rapid prototyping. I don't. I will tell you when I like working on custom stuff with a lot of clients, rapid prototyping for a lot of my clients does not work. They will focus on everything but what they need to focus on, which is the content and the experience. They will focus on the shade of blue. They will focus on whether the button is a round edge or a true traditional like rectangle with like the harsh edges. They never focus on the content. And then what ends up happening is I end up rebuilding things about 100 times. See, a lot of people will go out there and say how wonderful rapid prototyping is, but I'd love to hear more about the person on the other end, your client during this process. Is it a client that understands what rapid prototyping, like the purpose of it and like the different meanings of the stages? Is it a client that is another instructional designer? Is this an internal team? Because I do a lot of work with external folks that have not very much instructional design or learning experience. Or they're like really, or they might be part of that department, but they were just, the only reason they're there is because they're like really good at, selling or their job. And they don't understand rapid prototyping, and instead they need that phased approach. And so it does go a little bit slower, but it also goes slow in the beginning and then fast at the end because they get to see things a lot of times. But that is a choice I have to make when I work with a client. And if I know that I can get away with doing things a little bit faster because of the environment, because of the folks that I'm working with, then I pick a different tool. So we blame these models as being outdated. Is it outdated, or is it that we are not applying it properly, or we're being too strict on the interpretations of it all? Not that I'm a little biased on that topic, because I have to have this conversation all the time about the Kirkpatrick model, but here we are. But that's why I leaned in on ADDIE, because I also think like she gets a bad rap. Like, my girl's cool. When done well, like, I love it. I don't follow her exactly to the T. I bring up that E. I evaluate throughout. I choose the right tools in the middle to speed things up. I bring in a pilot team from the beginning so I'm able to make updates before rolling it out to the larger group. I don't just roll things out without testing. What's so hard about that, right? It's that we are so strict with ourselves. Like, this is the way that I learned it. And so when we do those things, we really restrict the true ability for the model or the framework to flourish to get us the results that we're looking for. And I think when we marry ADDIE with Kirkpatrick, we get this beautiful framework and blend of a project management methodology and framework to help us design learning, and then the evaluation framework that helps to tell us along the way, are we doing the right thing? Are we going the right way? And when you can design using Kirkpatrick model, what you're designing are holistic experiences, because you're designing that foundational piece of the program or initiative, and then all the things that someone is going to need in the performance environment to actually perform. And then you're monitoring and adjusting, and then you're course correcting, right? And it really helps you to stop wasting time, money, and effort. It also helps save the program or initiative from the graveyard of a failed initiative. So, I've been working on a new methodology for impact studies and a new technology for it. And one of the things that we were talking about is this, like, these programs or initiatives that get ghosted and they just go to this like graveyard, like no one ever talks about, right? We don't want to study it because we don't really want like the truth as to what happened, right? And so that happens to our programs. So like, how do we save our programs from going into the graveyard? It's through designing for performance and using the Kirkpatrick model, designing with evaluation baked in. So you are seeing from the beginning, right? From execution, what is happening out in the field? How are people using the content? Are behaviors changing? Are we on the right way for level 4 results, like to meet our end goal? And then from the beginning, when we start the initial process to launch, we look at, is this an initiative that is not going to end up in the graveyard? Is it part of the strategic initiative for the organization? Is there executive support, or just like a pet project from someone that's trying to put their stamp on the organization? That's a big one. Is it something that is feasible, right? Is there psychological safety in the organization? Is there the ability to apply what you've learned? Is there support from managers, from peers to execute those behaviors? These are all, we partner with the Institute for Transfer Effectiveness when it comes to learning transfer. These are all key components. And what I love about the 12 levers and transfer and Kirkpatrick as well, is the fact that they do go so hand in hand to ensure that behavior changes. And when you when you have one without the other, it really is not as strong, and it becomes a lot higher of a chance that your program or initiative eventually ends up in the graveyard. So if you are looking for ways to save your programs or initiative, or your new training programs, to get out of the graveyard, to focus on performance, to focus on really looking at learning differently in ways that are probably actually faster, because we're focusing less on these big, long instructional design programs and more on performance, like tools out in the performance environment, then this is the program you need to be at. This is the program that's going to say, yes, great, you've learned all of the, the Bloom's taxonomy, and all of these things. That's a great foundation to have. Let's now take it up a notch and get to performance. And I'd love to see you at our inaugural cohort this May 12th to 15th. It is at a killer deal that will never be out there again in that same way. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Let me know more about how you design for performance as opposed to just instruction, and I'll catch y'all on the next episode. Bye.